what I was trying to say was we saw that Twitter video a few days ago, and you said something along the lines of the harder it gets, the better I like our chances, and that Western Kentucky is a place that's built to overcome challenges. I guess, how have you seen that, especially within this past year for you guys? And I guess, what have you seen this fall and how the team has kind of reacted to everything going on since they've been back on campus?
Yeah, well, again, I guess our upbringing always prepares us for what we're going through in life. And, again, I'm a coach that took over a volleyball program 25 years ago. And, I made $19,000 as a head coach. And, we had 8 people in the stands watching volleyball. And, we literally built this program from scratch. And so unquestionably, we went through some really difficult times back in those days building this program. And but the program, from even back in those times, this program was built on people. And what everybody's going through now, I think, returns us to the roots of that. What has allowed our athletics department and our program to persevere, through the last 8 or 9 months, is a great group of people. There's a whole lot of people who are vastly overworked and have a whole bunch of things that have been dropped in their lap due to this virus, that have had to take on more and kind of figure things out on the fly. And, so in the best of times, I've always said that what makes this place special is the people. And now in one of the more difficult times, you also see it's those very same people that have allowed us to maneuver through this and do the very best we can with it. And with regards to our team, again, what a whirlwind from them. Talk about the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Back in December, we're hosting the NCAA tournament for the first time, and our program is, finishes the year in the second round of the NCAA tournament. We're I think probably a preseason top 25 team coming into this year. And then, much like a lot of other people, we're impacted greatly by this virus. And so it's been difficult. It's been difficult for our players to get their mind around it. It's been difficult. The unknown has been the biggest difficult for them, I think, daily, in terms of, I think our team has always been good at being given challenges and overcoming them. But this has been very unique in that very often day to day, you don't even know what those challenges are.
And to kind of follow up on that, I know you talked about December and hosting the NCAA tournament, coming in as probably a top 25 team. It seems like the program, it just has a ton of momentum kind of heading into this fall. But when the championships get moved to the spring, I guess, how do you make sure that momentum doesn't slow down or stop for the program?
Well, I'm taking all advice. If you have any, you can get with me after we're done. Because again, 25 years in, you think I'm a veteran and I've seen it all, and this is unlike anything. I just had my first weekend off in the fall in 25 years this past weekend, and so to me, the whole key to all of this is just a great deal of communication. Just constantly having conversation with our players to try to get a sense of where they are mentally, because there's no handbook for this. There's no looking back at how we've dealt with things like this in the past, because it's all so new. And so to me, it's about just continuing to have a high level of conversation to kind of get a sense of where they are mentally, and B, just a great sense of togetherness, just spending time together and trying to stay connected, because that was a huge part of the success we were having in the meantime.
It seemed like when Mark Emmert came out with that statement that there would be no fall championships, it seemed like it caught a lot of people off guard. I guess, what was the reaction among your team then, and kind of what it is now that they know that the season's been moved to the spring?
Yeah, well, it was mixed. It was a mixed reaction, because, these kids are wired to compete. And this time of year, like I said, they all just, like we all, every year this time of year, you just know it's time. You just feel it in your heart and soul, because it's what we do. And so there was a lot of disappointment knowing that we were going to have to navigate without playing. But yet on the flip side of that, there was a lot of apprehension from our kids, because what they didn't want to do is start into a season and have have it pulled out from under them. What they didn't want to do was to have, some shortened, somewhat meaningless season that didn't really feel like the kind of year that they deserve, to have using a year of eligibility. And so, there was disappointment and relief in the room all at the same time, if that makes sense.
And kind of going down your roster through all this process, has there been any players that have kind of led the rest of the team through this challenging times, whether that's experienced players or newcomers that you guys have?
Well, no, because I think it's just been very much everyone leaning on each other. Because again, no one. I saw an article recently from a very well-respected volleyball coach that retired several years ago that said this would be the most challenging year ever for a Division I volleyball coach, because you're dealing with so many unknowns, you're dealing with so many emotions, you're dealing with so many different viewpoints on what's going on, and that the key is just going to be kind of keeping everybody together. And so we literally, it's been an interesting sociology experiment, really. It seems like one week, these kids are doing pretty well and everybody's leaning on them, and the next week it may be a different group of kids that have got their mind around it and everybody leans on them. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to lock arms and stay together and understand that it's not just something that our program's going through, but every volleyball athlete in the country is going through. And so, our mentality from the beginning has been, we can't control what's going on. So our challenge is just to, whatever does happen, we just have to do it better than everybody else. And if that means staying more connected than everybody else and, those things, then that's part of it.
And, from an actual volleyball side of things, what have you guys been working on since you've been back, and kind of what's the plan now that the season won't be played until the spring?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago when we were in the gym, it was the sprint. We were supposed to be in South Bend, Indiana last weekend, opening our season at Notre Dame. And, 2 weeks ago, we're in a dead sprint trying to, pull things together as a unit to be prepared to go out and play at a high level. And, very quickly, we've kind of gone into, it's almost like our seasons have flipped a little bit. And very quickly now we're thinking more about individual improvement. And, but not, most of the time in the spring, it's very individually focused. We're taking pieces of that with us this fall because now we have the time to make those individual improvements. But I think it's also important to throw in some team things, some team play and things like that, because they're so far removed from having been able to play the game. And, I think we have to balance the two of those things really well to keep them, healthy physically, to keep them healthy mentally. There's just a lot to balance every day.
We had a Zoom with Todd last week. He said he wasn't quite sure what the schedules would look like and everything at this point. Do you guys have any plans for any kind of scrimmages this fall, or have any idea of what the spring might look like for you guys in terms of a schedule?
Yeah, we're working on that. We're hoping to be able to pull together a couple competitions this fall. We don't know what that'll look like at this point. We don't know when that'll be at this point. But, if we don't, our players are literally going to have gone a full calendar year without ever lining up and playing a competitive volleyball match. And that's not something that's good for them. It's not something that's good for our development as a team, because we got shut down in the spring before we were able to get into our spring competitions. And so it's my hope that we will be able to, we'll probably do a series of inter-squad scrimmages and things of that nature this spring, but hopefully we can get a couple outside competitions, depending on the, how everything goes with the virus and other things, and just to allow our kids to, compete, but also allow them to have something to look forward to a little bit, and then in the spring, again, they're still talking about what that's going to look like. I believe it'll be a shortened version of a regular volleyball season in the spring. I know you saw that the NCAA has given a blanket waiver of eligibility for all these kids to have another year. I think that's a really good thing. I think it's the right thing, but I also think that it probably means that, they won't be as committed to having a complete full length season in the spring as they would have had otherwise. So we don't know yet. We don't know what that'll look like, but we're hopeful that we can play a season in the spring followed up with a championship.
To kind of follow up with that, have you guys had anyone opt out or have anybody express interest in having that extra year of eligibility after the season? I know it's still really early on for that decision to be made.
Yeah, it is early. And again, I think there was some kids that were kind of just waiting to see what this was all going to look like this fall for us. Certainly we had made it known that we would support any of our kids in whatever decision that they made. I think it's so important for all of us, certainly in an athletic setting, but really throughout the community and the United States. I think it's so important for everybody to try to understand each other's perspective a little bit. I think there's such a lack of that right now. And I don't think that it's possible for me to understand what a freshman student athlete's feeling right now, or a freshman student athlete to understand what a senior's feeling right now. And so, we've tried to approach this with a high level of understanding, of each other. And now that they've given the blanket waiver, then, I think that our kids are feeling good about moving forward. And we're just trying to now refocus on just getting better as a team and being ready when that time does come.
With that blanket waiver, have you thought about how that might affect the future of this program in years to come? I imagine you have, but I guess how much emphasis or thought have you put into?
Well, listen, this was one of those, I told my wife about a month ago, I said, the most depressing thing about all of this is usually when you're faced with tough situations, you think to yourself, okay, if I can just get it to work out like this, then everything will be okay. And unfortunately, in the situation we're in, it really didn't matter which way it all worked out. There was going to be a big bag of problems waiting on you when you got there. And, this is the best case scenario for these student athletes, what they've decided to do and giving the blanket waiver. But it does create issues, they're going to allow us to bring back all of our student athletes, but now a normal roster of 12 to 14 kids is going to be 18 kids. And although the NCAA is going to allow that to be the case, they're not necessarily going to step forward with the money to make sure that that's possible. And, again, in a normal year, that would be a challenge for any school in the country to be able to just come up with that many more scholarships. Certainly in a year where we're dealing with this virus and attendance issues and all the other budget concerns that will come along with this, that's going to be a real challenge. But I'm committed to these kids, and we're starting to sort through that kind of stuff, and we'll find a way to make it work.
To kind of swing back, I know I asked about individuals from a leadership standpoint, but from a volleyball standpoint, and just the workouts and practices and stuff that you've had, who have you been impressed with, whether that's people coming back or some of your newcomers?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I think from a physical standpoint, I'm shocked at where we are right now. I think we're in a pretty good position given the fact that they didn't have access to weight rooms and all those kinds of things. John Stefanski, our strength coach, did a really good job on the fly of helping them adapt and do those things. Mentally is the hardest part for these kids right now, because you just need to, know when these things are going to happen. And so it's really difficult to come in and be at a high level. Lauren Matthews, who was the player of the year in the league last year, is a kid that I've always considered a really tough kid mentally. And I think she's showing it during these times. She's continuing to play at a really high level for us. Paige Briggs is a kid that was the freshman of the year last year and is a much better player than she was a year ago right now. And but these are kids. We got a lot of kids in our gym that just love to play the game, and that's what we're trying to get focused back on, is just playing because we love to play. I had an exercise with our kids about a week ago when they were trying to sort through all this, and I had them all text me an answer of, why do I play? And we've won a lot of championships around here, and we're very proud of the level that we're playing at. But as they individually responded to me about why they play this game, the word championship never came up. It really, you know, that's a byproduct, and they love to play toward those things. But the reasons why they play the game is their teammates and their love for the sport and their love to compete. And so we're trying to refocus ourselves on those things. And this group has really done a good job getting their mind around that. We're, you know, really far removed from playing a meaningful competition right now. But, you know, I still have freshmen who just walked in the door that, you know that their turn may be another year off from where it would have normally been, who are coming to me, you know, just craving getting better. And so we're just trying to get back to the root of what turned these kids into the athletes that they are to begin with.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I do.
Hello.
Hi, I'm with the Herald.
Hi, Cassidy.
So I have just like a kind of general question. Is there any update on the team's health since coming back to campus?
Well, physically, they're all doing great, you know, just the bumps and bruises of being in 2-a-days. And, you know, with regard to the virus, I can't say enough about what our athletic department has done coming in the door. You know, all our kids were tested when they came in the door, and all our kids are in the practice gym with us right now. They're doing great. They're being monitored. Our training staff has worked extensively to put in place, you know, the things to make these kids as safe as we can possibly make them. And, you know, one of the things that I've tried to reiterate to our kids over and over is, you know, what we're all trying to do, whether we're an athlete or not an athlete, is just learn to live side by side with this virus. And, you know, being an athlete here and the steps that they've taken here to allow that to be the case, you know, our kids have handled this pretty seamlessly. They're doing the right things. They're aware that their actions are going to impact the people around them. And certainly I hope that's the mentality that we have all across our campus, is that my responsibility today is something that will impact everybody else on the campus on a daily basis. And they've certainly done a really good job with that.
Coach, this is Jared from the Daily News again. I did have one more for you. You were recently named as one of the people being inducted into the Hall of Distinguished Alumni. What does that mean to you personally?
Boy, that one's hard for a guy that never has trouble coming up with words. That one's hard to put into words for me. I'm very, very rarely speechless. And when President Carboni called me to let me know, I had no idea I'd even been nominated. And when he called me to let me know that, it impacted me very deeply and continues to, because I have a great love for this university. And, you know, as a young man, you know, at 17 years old, when I stepped on this campus, not knowing who I wanted to be or what I wanted to be, you know, this place shaped me into the person that I've become. And, you know, as I transitioned from student into, you know, I was a Hilltopper fan. I was a WKU student who waved his towel and was in the student section and did all those things when I was a student here. And then to transition into coaching and to be side by side with people like Jimmy Fikes and Jim Richards and Lee Robertson and all the unbelievable Hilltoppers that we've had through the years here. And to just always, I am a person, I'm a very loyal person, and I respect loyal people around me. And I always had such admiration for the men and women that came before me that you know, that really embodied everything that this place was about. And, you know, for this moment to happen, you know, I received a beautiful phone call from Jim Richards after I was selected. And just listening to one of the men that I looked up to with such admiration talk to me about how much it means to him that I'm going to be inducted is a hard thing for me to get through without a great deal of emotion, because It means a lot to me. I can't think of a higher honor that I could ever receive.